The Tarrant County Master Gardener Association has partnered with the Tarrant Regional Water District to encourage water conservation. TRWD maintains 4 area lakes and pipelines needed to provide surface water to local water treatment plants so they can clean that water to meet drinking standards for our communities. They also work with many cities in Tarrant County, such as Fort Worth, Arlington, Mansfield, and many others, to provide water conservation programs to the community. Conservation is an important water supply strategy to help meet the needs of our growing population. There are currently 2.3 million people living in Tarrant County, and this is expected to double over the next 50 years. At SaveTarrantWater.com, you can sign up for free weekly watering advice custom to your location. If you're a resident of Tarrant County, you can sign up for a free sprinkler's checkup where a licensed irrigator comes to your home, provides a comprehensive evaluation of your system with recommendations to reduce water waste. There's also an event calendar where you can find information about future classes and workshops. So be sure and check out SaveTarrantWater.com to sign up for their free services.
Okay, Craig, if you're ready, you can start your presentation.
All right, Dick, thank you so much for the introduction. Tonight I'm going to be speaking about Texas Superstar. Now, I am a certified Tarrant County Master Gardener, and I have been engaged in the Superstar program for about 1.5 years. So let's get started. So first, what's it take to be a superstar plant? Every plant that you're going to see in the list that I will provide to you has gone through extensive field trials by not only Texas A&M AgriLife Research, but also the Extension Service organization. Now, these field trials are generally 2 or more years in length, and they are held all around the state, from Overton, which is close to Tyler, to Lubbock, to San Antonio, to Uvalde. So it's a wide swath across the state. Everything must be super performing under our very interesting and dynamic Texas growing conditions. So the initial state is they put during the trials is they put these plants in with minimal soil preparation, reasonable levels of water. So you want to get the plant established, and that's important. You can't just plant these plants in the ground and turn and walk away. You need to have reasonable levels of water to get them established, and no pesticides are used at all during this process. Only the toughest, the most reliable, and the best looking plants can make the superstar list. Now, this whole program began in the 1980s as a regional program, obviously within the state of Texas. It went statewide in 1989, and the Texas Superstar term was coined in 1997. So why should you, as a homeowner or gardener, want to use Superstar plants? Well, based on the field trials and successes, then you have the best possible advantage for having success in your landscape. All these plants have proven to be beautiful and require little to no maintenance. They are easy to propagate, therefore growers and providers will generally create these plants for you to go and purchase at your local nurseries. So they are widely available, and because they're easy to propagate, they should be reasonably priced. Everything that we talk about is all research-based information. It's all being provided to the homeowner for your education and use. There is a brochure that is off the webpage, and you can also acquire it through AgriLife Extension. But I would suggest that you always go to the webpage to look at the brochure, because it's going to be your most current information. It is used by landscape companies and nurseries to help homeowners identify what's the right plants to use. It's updated generally every 2 to 4 years. And the last update was in 2022. The brochure or the webpage has over 40 different pages of information about 90 different plant varieties. And there were 4 new additions being made in 2022. And I'm going to let you see what those brand new plants are going to be in the very near future. So this is the splash page, if you will. If you go to, if you go to this address, texassuperstar.com, not superstars, but superstar.com, this is what you will see when you land there. This is a nice summary of not only the plants themselves, but the ability to select the superstars that belong in your area. You also see things like the wholesale providers and the retail nurseries that will provide these plants to you, as well as tips and tricks for growing these plants going forward. All right, so let's move into the first grouping. These are the annuals, and there are 26 annuals on the approved Texas Superstar list. And just to right size everybody, recognize that an annual is a plant that lives through one season. So it's not going to come back year after year. It's one season and one season only. I would also draw your attention to the Texas Superstar logo on the right-hand side of the presentation. That's the logo. It's a registered logo that you want to look for when you're in your nurseries looking for these plants. So the first one, Blue Days. I'm sure a number of people have heard about Blue Days. It is a low spreading, blue flowering plant. It is great, really great for all the hot spots in your garden. If you have a really, really direct sun beating down and you want some color, Blue Days will be there. It is a light blue color. It is not real dark, but it's a light blue color. It does love to have full sun, and it will get you the maximum blooms for that. It does require some drainage, so you want to make sure you've got that, and it blooms spring through summer. Also, if you're into container pot gardening, or if you have hanging baskets that you want a spiller, this is maybe the best spiller that's out there for use in your gardens. Next is the Texas Bluebonnet. No Texas Superstar would be complete without saying the Texas Bluebonnet is on the list. Not only the standard, but also the maroon bluebonnet, which was developed by Texas A&M, is on this list. It is a hardy winter annual. It is a Texas native, as you can imagine. It blooms March through May, and you need to get the seeds put out in the fall so that you can get a bloom, just like we've had here recently in north central Texas. With all the rain that we've had in the last few weeks, the wildflower show in north central Texas is pretty impressive, and the bluebonnets are doing their part in making that very, very successful. Next are zinnias. Zinnias, there are 4 different series that are on the list of the Texas Superstar: Profusion and Zahara, and Dreamland and Magellan. The Profusion and Zahara are the mounding type of zinnias that you see in the picture on the right-hand side. The Dreamland and Magellan are the ones that are much more of the classic upright zinnia plants. Very disease resistant. These things bloom all summer long, lots and lots of color. They love the sun, and well-drained soils is necessary for them to perform. You should know that I personally have these around a very hardscape in my backyard, and it really softens the edge. And I really like all the color. It just adds a lot of value to the garden. Next are perennials. We're going to look at a few of these. There are 21 perennials on the approved Texas Superstar list. The first is Turk's Cap. Turk's Cap is one of those where some people may love it and some people may hate it. It definitely has its own good properties and some interesting ones. It is very rapidly growing. The colors range from bright red to pink to white. If you want hummingbirds and butterflies in your backyard, this is a plant to put in. It does propagate rather quickly. If you get one, you're going to get a few going forward. It is extremely drought tolerant, and the sun and shade exposure is nice in that if you put this plant out in the sun, you're going to get a lot more blooms. but the foliage is going to kind of sag and look a little down. If you move this plant into a shade exposure, then the foliage kind of stands up, but you won't get as many blooms on it. But so it really works in both areas, and it's kind of your choice. But I know some people are really go, wow, I get this, and it just keeps going and going and going. Next is the plumbago. This is probably the best workhorse of a plant that we have on the Texas Superstar list. It thrives, absolutely thrives in the hot Texas summer. It is resistant to disease and pests and deer. Now, when we say deer resistant, we know that nothing is completely deer resistant. They will maybe take a try at this, but they don't maybe go eat it to the ground like it will do some other things, but it is pretty resistant. It blooms from May until frost. It can grow from 4 to 5 feet in size, so it can get pretty good size. You definitely want to give this plant a haircut a couple of times a year. You want to shear it back, shear it back to remove the dead flowers and also to just regenerate and cause a new bloom. And it really loves sun. This picture, if you notice, it looks like it's at the Riverwalk in San Antonio, and I think it's probably one of the most brutal places for a plant to be, and you can see how well the plumbago is performing there. Next is the Henry Duelberg salvia. This plant was identified in the at the gravesite of Henry Duelberg, i.e. that's where the name comes from. It is a very low maintenance kind of plant. It's very heat tolerant, native to Texas. It gets lots and lots of blooms. And this is another plant where you need to give it a haircut a little bit to cause it to give you another set of blooms, maybe partway through the year. So get it blooming now, and then maybe July or August, you give it a little haircut to get another set of blooms. Okay, next are perennials. Now, perennials may be a term that not everyone has heard. It is perennials that are perennials in a tropical environment, that as we move further north in the state of Texas, they become more and more like annuals. There's a limited number of plants on this list. So I'm only going to touch on one. It happens to be a personal favorite of mine, but there are 9 total that are on the list. And this is the Gold Star Esperanza. If you look at my screen while I'm talking, I have an Esperanza behind me in my backyard. That Esperanza has been with me 5 or 6 years. So even though I will tell you it's generally an annual, I have one that I take care of greatly, and it continues to grow. The one I currently have is about 5 feet tall and about 4 feet wide, and just covered with blooms. It really loves the heat. These bell-shaped flowers really draw in the hummingbirds, and it's great, absolutely great for those kinds of gardens, for butterflies or hummingbirds. And also, it's a great plant if you want a thriller in a container. I would highly recommend putting that one in. It also, the color is really, really gold. So you need to be aware when you're placing this in your garden that you want to put it in a place that will, the other flowers around it will stand up to it. You know, rich, full colors, not pastels, but stronger colors, I think will make this a much showier plant in your garden. Next are shrubs. There are 8 on the approved list for shrubs within the Texas Superstar. The one I picked to talk about is Senecio, Glenn's Legacy Senecio. It is one of the many varieties of what I would call a Texas sage. This one is a little bit unique in that it frequently flowers. Some of the other Texas sages will bloom whenever there's a rain. It's almost like a barometer type plant that when the weather changes, you get a flush of blooms. This one will bloom not as much dependent upon the weather. It's really nice that it has the sage green foliage with lavender flowers. So it's a unique color within the garden space. It truly wants full sun. I've seen this out in just brutal overhead sun all day long, and it's a very happy plant, but it does need to have its feet dry. It needs to be well-drained soils. If you're interested in doing a xeriscape kind of thing, this is a plant to look at for doing those in your garden. Okay. Here we go. All right, so next is the Blue Angel Althea. It is it's a shrub. You can prune it up to make it into a small tree. It too loves full sun, and some light afternoon shade makes it even happier. It can grow to 6 to 8 feet in height. It will take a little while to get to that spot, but it is a really nice plant that has these big, beautiful blooms, as you can see in the picture. Again, well-drained soils, well-established when you're getting going. Next is the Texas lilac, or chase tree, or vitex. This is a large, and I say large with a big L, shrub or a small tree. You can prune this thing up into a small tree. What's really great about this is those spiky flowers that you see in the photograph. It is very heat, pest, and drought tolerant. When you're out driving west of Fort Worth and you're on one of the interstates, or even on some of the other U.S. roads, and you see a road stop, there's a good chance you're going to see a vitex there. It can get up to 15 feet tall and wide. It will bloom starting in May until frost. However, if you want to get additional blooms, you do need to prune it heavily after it blooms the first time. We just put one caveat, or two caveats, on this plant. One, it can get to 15 feet tall pretty quickly. My neighbor has two across the street, and they are easily 10 feet tall, and they're about a year and a half old. And so if you're going to do a prune job on that, you're going to need a ladder, and you're going to need to be careful that you're comfortable with doing that kind of a prune job. The other point I'd like to bring out is that this is not on the invasive plant list from the USDA perspective or the Texas Department of Agriculture, but there are folks who say this can be invasive. I think if you put this in a location where it's really happy, it tends to put out weedling or seedlings around the base, which requires you to monitor them. I just think a gardener needs to be well aware of what he's getting into when he picks this plant. It is a wonderful, beautiful plant that loves full sun, but you do need to be aware that it will give you some babies, and you need to be prepared to take care of those going forward. All right, next, we're going to talk about trees. There are 6 trees on the approved list for Texas Superstar. The first is the Chinese pistache. It is a near perfect shade tree for one-story type of building environments. It is winter hardy. It's a lovely shade tree. It grows 40 feet tall to 30 feet wide. It gives you red to red-orange fall color, and it is very tolerant of heat, drought, and soil. And it handles pests. It's extremely resistant to pests in general. Would highly recommend getting a male version of this tree. The female version does throw out seedlings, and you definitely want to pick, if you get the opportunity to pick a male tree for the pistache. Next is the Basham Party Pink crepe myrtle. It is a single or a multi-trunk tree. It again blooms from all the way through spring through summer. It does have some resistance to pests and things, but it does at times can get a little bit of aphids and honeydew. You need to be aware of that and know how to treat that. I mean, you can remove aphids off this with a high pressure water hose blasting on it, or there are chemicals that can support that. It does grow 20 to 30 feet tall. it is a deciduous tree, so it's going to drop all those leaves. But what I like about it is it drops all those leaves, but you still get that architecture and that movement and that prettiness of the bark and the tree itself. And in a winter garden, it gives you some interest and some, it's just pleasing to look at, I think, in the middle of the winter time, as much as it is when it's blooming in the summer. Next is the lacy oak. It is a Central Texas native oak tree. It's a little smaller than the pistache, by 25 by 20. Note in the picture that you can see the lovely blue-green foliage. It's very striking and kind of unique for the lacy oak. It does have acorns, so you have to deal with that, but they're not great big acorns, but it's something that you should be aware of. It is very tolerant of heat. The soils we have in north central Texas, generally the alkaline soils here, as well as drought and pest. It is great for a small yard, and it really, really loves to be out in the sun all the time. Next are the specialty plants. Specialty from a Texas superstar perspective are those plants that are either vegetables, fruit, or herbs. I'm only going to touch on one of those, and it is the green magic broccoli. I have grown the green magic broccoli in my backyard here in north central Texas. It is a high quality, beautiful head of broccoli. It does require full sun. It is great for the spring crop and the fall crop if you can make that happen, and if Mother Nature will cooperate with you. You do need to put this in the late, in the last few months of the year, November, December timeframe, so that you can harvest in February before temperatures start to reach about 80 degrees. And then putting it in the fall, you need to put it in, as it says on the chart, 90 days from with seeds from the first frost, or 60 days from transplant. So you got to watch your calendar and hope Mother Nature will support you getting 2 crops out of this plant. And now here are the new additions that I mentioned earlier on. These are coming in now as far as within the brochure, and they are plants I'm sure a lot of you will recognize. But they have just finished the certification process, and they are now superstars. The Tangerine Beauty Vine is a cross vine that supports going over arbors. Any place you want to grow a vine, the Tangerine Beauty Vine is a good plant to be looking for. This is the upper left-hand corner plant right here. The next one right below it is the red yucca. Again, loves the heat, loves to be outside in the sun. Red blooms that the mockingbirds, hummingbirds absolutely love. It is a little spiky. It's a little pokey if you walk by it. I had one in my backyard, and my wife and my children didn't particularly care for it, so I had to remove it. Next is the holly leaf fern up here in the upper right-hand corner. It is a shade-loving plant. It is really nice in deep shade with plants planted in front of it. It gives a really nice textured background for any other shade plants that can be right in front of it. A great border. And last but not least is the Gulf Muley grass. This is a native Texas grass. It's nice because it's a nice big shape. If you're going to use it in your gardens, you need to be aware that it takes up quite a bit of real estate, so be aware of that. But what it brings to the party is it gives you all that texture and motion most of the year. And then in the fall, you get this lovely pink coloration that looks like cotton candy, in my humble opinion. And it's really, really nice, and it gives lots of interest, like in the fall garden. So this is not really meant to be an eye chart for you. This is the when you hit the first link of the list of plants off the web page. So if you'll allow me, I'm going to go ahead and hit this link, and we'll move to that page for just a moment, and I'll start looking at some of the other plants that are here on the list. Yeah. So can you guys see the screen move? Just someone say yes. So, all right.
Yes.
Thank you. So this is the, when you select Texas Superstar plants off the webpage, this is the page it will take you to. You can see the breakdown of each of the different groupings: annual plants, perennials, trees, etc. So you can pick any one of these. Let's go to something that I haven't talked about. Let's try the Vinca Coral series. It brings up not only a description of the plant itself and its exposure, but also the size when it's mature, the type of plant that it is, the planting time, etc. As well, it gives you a lovely set of pictures that you can go look at and see exactly what you're going to be putting into your garden. Now, all of this information is, like I said, on the web page. And if you remember back to my first chart, it showed a phone, if you will. Well, this is all online, so you have the ability to go out there, and if you're at your local favorite nursery and you want to look for a Texas Superstar, you can go to the website and actually research your plants right there and help you make decisions on what you would like to add to your gardens. And now I'm going to shift back to the presentation. So, did I get everybody back? Okay. This is, again, the address for texassuperstar.com. That's where you go to get all the information. And again, I would highly stress there is brochures available, but I would go here to be able to gather all this information. And when you are out and shopping, you definitely want to look for the logo of Texas Superstars that you see on the right-hand side of the presentation. And there we go. I have completed my portion of the talk. I'm sure there's going to be a few questions. Here is the phone number. If you want to call the Tarrant County Master Gardener Association, we do have a help desk that's available at that number. And there is the email address for it as well. And I'll open it up for any kind of questions.
Thank you, Craig. That was good. I haven't seen any in the chat yet, any questions, but you can also feel free to unmute and ask Craig any questions if you have them. Now's your chance.
What was the question about planting bluebonnets? So, Craig, they want to know when to plant the seeds in the fall, specifically October, November, December.
Yeah, it really, it's probably October, November is the right time to be putting those seeds out.
Are there any tulips that actually do well in Texas, or are you familiar with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, do well is perspective. I treat all tulips in, at least here in North Texas, as annuals. I procure bulbs from a vendor up in the north, and I get them in and do the chill here in Texas and place them out generally the week between Christmas and New Year's. And then I have blooms that generally start about March and go into April. And I've had really good luck with that. But generally it's either a container garden kind of activity. I do put mine in the ground, but I know full well that I put them in and I'm going to have them for 3 months and then they're done. I don't dig them back up. I don't try and reuse them. I just know that they're going to turn into nourishment for the next plant that goes to its location.
Thank you, Craig. That's great information. Actually, I worked for Six Flags for years, and I used to watch what the gardeners did there, and they followed the exact same schedule that you just described. Right after Christmas, they would plant, and they would pull them up, and I would get their discards, and I would keep them over. And actually, they did do well, but it is a lot of work to try to keep them from year to year for certain.
Yeah, I wouldn't attempt to do it. I know people that do that, and especially in a container world, I think you could probably pull them out, but we just don't have the environment. But with a last name like Holland, I kind of feel like I have to grow tulips.
I love it. Thank you.
Greg, there's a question about that. Somebody wants to know where they can get that maroon bluebonnet seed.
That's a good question. That I think you're going to have to go look at your local nurseries. Again, if you go to that web page, there is a list of vendors, and I apologize. I'm probably making everybody sick running through these charts, so I apologize right up front. But if you go here to the splash page, there is a list of retailers, and it is done by region. So you can go and pick, if you're in Tarrant County, then you can go find the region and go find the suppliers that are there. But it is a little more of a challenge to find those. I will be honest with you, I have not looked for them.
There's another question. Somebody wants to know if Ruby Crush is a new tomato superstar.
Well, let's see. All right, Ruby Crush. There was a couple of tomatoes. The used to be called the HM. Pardon me, I'm going to lean forward here so I can see. I don't see the Ruby Crush on the list. Let me do a quick, and that will save my eyes. Oh, yeah, there's something. No, I don't believe so. It's not on the approved list today.
Okay. Somebody wants to know if pistache is not invasive. Is it invasive?
The Chinese pistache, the tree. I saw no record of that. I have not gotten any kind of literature that describes the pistache as an invasive type of tree.
I think it's primarily a female that wants to send up babies everywhere.
Well, the babies, that definitely the recommendation is to go get a male plant. There's no doubt about that.
Right. And the evaluation link is in the very beginning of the chat. It's listed there. And Nancy will also send you a copy of the link when she sends the recording and things to you. So you can watch this presentation again if you wish to.
Dick,
Yes.
this is Pat. I need to know who has the phone number 1-940-367-9951.
Okay. So if you have that phone number, would you please give Pat your name, please?
Craig, I had a question.
Yes.
You mentioned giving the Vitex tree a haircut to get another set of blooms. Are you talking about just trimming the spent blooms when you talk about cutting it back?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct. I would take those flower spikes off just right below where they are, when they're blooming.
Okay. Thanks. Great presentation. Thank you.
Be very careful doing that, though. Like I said, it's you're up in the air, and nobody needs to fall off a ladder.
I'm not going to do that. You're right. Thank you.
Any more questions? Anyone know where you can buy a Chinese male pistache? You hear that, Craig?
I did. I'm I'm going to reference back to the list of retailers that are on that homepage.
Okay.
I don't know a vendor right now off the top of my head, but there are people that are listed there. That's where I would start my search.
Any more questions?
Dick, there's a question about the Vitex.
Yes.
They're asking if it could be maintained as a shrub.
Oh, I see that now. Yeah.
It definitely can be left as a shrub. It will get to be a large shrub. You're talking about probably 8 to 10 feet wide and 10 to 15 feet tall if you just leave it alone and let it go to its natural state. And so you definitely, if you're going to plan on using it into your garden, I would highly recommend you identify the right space. It does, the blooms do drop. So if you're going to put it in a backyard close to a pool, I would put it as far away from the pool as I could, so that you just don't get the droppings in the pool and the effect on your pool equipment from that perspective.
And it's a very rapid grower too.
Yes,
I know some people cut it way back just to keep it smaller because it grows so quickly.
There's one about how to determine if the stash that you're purchasing or you see is a male or female.
That's a good question.
that is a good question. And to be honest with you, I don't know how to answer that question. So if other master gardeners online that can help me with that, that would be awesome. If not, you're going to have to trust your tree man where you're procuring your tree from.
They're easy to recognize in the winter because they're the ones with all the berries all over them. So, but other than that, be right. It'd be hard to know.
And maybe that plays into buying the tree in the fall when it would be better to plant it anyway. So it gets a chance to establish itself. So you might have a real good idea of what the gender is before you ever buy it. Well, again, thank you everyone for your attendance and your attention. Happy gardening, everyone.